Well, here we are, having just crossed that threshold of a new year. So let me be the third person to wish you Happy New Year in this service. Just 10 hours in. So if you made any New Year's resolutions, I may be even speaking to you before you've broken any of them so far this year, or not. I too have a brand new calendar, and I chose to open it to a picture of Hawaii. I thought that was a good picture for today. Brand new calendar with blank spaces all through those pages for a whole year. That doesn't mean I don't have any appointments or any obligations already committed to, but they're not on these pages yet. But even when I get those written in, I realize that there's a lot of empty space on this calendar. I have a lot of options about how the days represented by these little squares will get filled in. How will I fill those days? What will be my priorities as I fill in those little squares with my day-to-day living? How will I use the time that God gives me? What goals will I be working toward? What accomplishments do I hope to achieve? What do I do on any particular day that will make a positive difference? And just as important, how do I renew myself, refresh myself, enjoy myself so that I'm not just consumed by goals and achievements? As I moved through the Advent and Christmas season this year, I was struck by how often the theme of peace was the focal point. The second Advent candle symbolized peace. The angels sing of peace on earth, goodwill to men. Isaiah's prophecy points to a child born to be named Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Over and over again, peace is held up as a cornerstone sign of the kingdom of God. Everyone wants peace, so why don't we have it? As I pondered that question, I was drawn to the verses that Marty read just a few minutes ago. I toyed with reading all of the Beatitudes, not the Ten Commandments, recorded in Matthew 5, and several verses of instruction that Paul provides in Romans 12, because they both make excellent reference points for a comprehensive list of New Year's resolutions. But I wanted to focus on peace, and in particular, on being peacemakers. In its Christmas shows over the last few years, the Longs Peak Chorus has sung an arrangement of Do you hear what I hear? This particular arrangement has the chorus doing and oohing through much of the song, while individual voices sing the first three verses of the song. And in past years, I have been concentrating so much on my oohs and doos and occasional ahs that I didn't pay so much attention to the words of those verses. But this year I had occasion to pay attention to those words. And I discovered something that interested me a lot in those verses. And it didn't just interest me, it disturbed me. There seems to be a missing link, or perhaps an intentional right turn that occurs in the midst of the progression of those verses. Have you noticed it? First verse, said the night wind to the little lamb, do you see what I see? Way up in the sky, little lamb, do you see what I see? A star dancing in the night with a tail as big as the kite. And it goes on, second verse. Said the little lamb to the shepherd boy, do you hear what I hear? Ringing through the sky, shepherd boy, do you hear what I hear? A song high above the trees with a voice as big as the sea. So far, so good. Okay, I don't know how the night wind communicates to the little lamb. I don't know how the little lamb communicates to the shepherd boy. But somehow or other, they're good things. We know those are good things. Do you hear what I hear? But then a shift occurs in the third verse. Listen. Said the shepherd boy to the mighty king, do you know what I know? In your palace warm, mighty king? Do you know what I know? A child shivers in the cold. Let us bring him silver and gold. Let us bring him silver and gold. A change from those wonderful things to something not so wonderful. A child shivering in the cold. And the shepherd boy suggests that we bring him silver and gold. A good warm blanket would help. But silver and gold can help get this shivering one out of the cold. But now, listen to the fourth verse. Said the king to the people everywhere, listen to what I say. Pray for peace, people everywhere. Listen to what I say. The child sleeping in the night, he will bring us goodness and light. He will bring us goodness and light. I just lost mine. Let's wait a minute. Didn't the king hear the shepherd boy? Was he refusing to know what the shepherd boy knew? The shepherd boy is making a pitch for help, for silver and gold, for the child shivering in the night. But the king, from his palace warm, seems to ignore that shivering child. What does he do instead? He tells his people to pray for peace. Now, there's nothing wrong with praying for peace. But what about the child shivering in the cold? The shepherd boy has spoken truth to power. And the powerful king passes the buck. He doesn't offer silver and gold or even a warm blanket, even though he easily could. No, instead, he pontificates and invites or commands the people everywhere to pray for peace. It's the same problem that we have encountered over and over these last few years, isn't it? People with power to make changes instead comment that the people who have been harmed are in their thoughts and prayers. Sometimes thoughts and prayers are all that we can offer. But more often, there is so much more that could be done if those in power would use their power to bring about change. And sometimes, those folks are us. We have more power than we think. And we can choose to use that power to be peacemakers, not just peace prayers. Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God." Ken Sande writes in The Peacemaker, "Peacemakers are people who breathe grace. They draw continually on the goodness and power of Jesus Christ, and then they bring His love, mercy, forgiveness, strength, and wisdom to the conflicts of daily life." People who breathe grace. I love that phrase. No wonder peacemakers will be known as the children of God. But peacemaking is anything but easy. And the results are not common in today's world. People lock horns in a courtroom, a bedroom, a congregational meeting, the workplace, arenas of politics, international negotiations, or outright war. We live in a world of conflict. We live in a world where our own self-interest seems to be the most important thing over and against what is the common good. Let's face it. Wherever two people or more people are together, there is a potential for disagreement and conflict. As children of God, we're called to breathe grace into all of these situations. As Paul says, if it is possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. He says a few verses later, do not overcome evil with evil, but overcome evil with good. The word peace in Hebrew is shalom and denotes completeness, soundness, welfare. So a peacemaker helps to make things whole and complete, where everyone's needs are met. Likewise, the Greek word for peace, ironia, means to join together, to tie together in a whole. So a peacemaker helps bring people together in a community of mutual care. A peacemaker, like the shepherd boy, is not satisfied as long as anyone is still shivering in the cold. Now, most of us, most of the time, just want to avoid conflict, don't we? We are, if you will, recovering peacekeepers. Peacekeepers want to avoid conflict and call for calm at any cost. But that's not peace. That's only a temporary truce. True peace does not come at the expense of truth. True peace does not come at the expense of minorities being trampled or ignored. True peace doesn't mean that we're afraid of bringing up differences. Rather, we acknowledge and even celebrate our differences and learn to live with them. Peacekeeping is almost always the opposite of peacemaking. Peacekeeping keeps the status quo. It maintains power with those who are already in power. Like the old twist of the golden rule, he who has the gold makes the rules. In 1873, Samuel Colt introduced a pistol and named it the Peacekeeper. In 1982, President Ronald Reagan dubbed the new mobile MX missiles peacekeepers because they would be a great deterrent to foreign aggression. Peacekeepers, you see, try to keep conflict at bay through the power at hand, but do nothing to resolve a conflict. Peacemakers, on the other hand, breathe grace into situations of conflict and tension, looking for ways to transform those situations into possibilities of love, mercy, forgiveness, and peace. Remembering a inspirational video I had used a number of years ago in leadership training meetings, a video of DeWitt Jones, the well-known National Geographic photographer. I wondered if it was still available. So I Googled it, tried to find it. Amazon said it was no longer available. But I found a newer TED Talk called Celebrate What's Right with the World, done by DeWitt Jones. Very similar. His points had not changed through 30 years. His points, using images of photography and showing up on the screen some of the most beautiful images that any of us can imagine, he began to talk about ways and concepts in photography that have application within our lives. I highly recommend, if you Google DeWitt Jones, you'll find it on YouTube. Use concepts like this. Use a different lens. If one doesn't give you the results you want, try a different perspective. Turn around. You've been so focused on one area that maybe just turning a bit will give you a whole new perspective. There's more than one right answer. That may be the most important thing that we all can remember. In almost every situation, there is more than one right answer. Find a new perspective. Turn obstacles into opportunities. Those are the very things that allow us to breathe grace into conflict and to become peacemakers. The Prince of Peace calls us to be not peacekeepers, but peacemakers. Why don't we make that a resolution for this year? Not just a few of us, but all of us. All of us who want to be known as the children of God. Do you see what I see? A star that shines in the deepest darkness, in places of suffering and despair. A star that lightens our pathway ahead as we seek to follow the way of the child that brings us goodness and light. The very Prince of Peace. Do you hear what I hear? A song that sings of unity and mutual care, a song of deep and abiding peace. Do you know what I know? That a child still shivers in the cold? And we, the children of God, can bring our very best so that that child and every child may sleep in heavenly peace. Will you pray with me? Gracious God, light our pathway. and call us to be peacemakers. Give us the courage to stand in situations of conflict, seeking a new perspective, a means of bringing about your peace. And so may we be filled with your Spirit as we recognize that we indeed are your beloved children. Amen.